Hello, and welcome to everyone tuning in, whether you're starting your day with us or just winding down. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm Nadia, and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's Microsoft Reactor live stream. Before we dive into the main event, I'd like to remind everyone about the Reactor Code of Conduct. Our aim is to cultivate a positive and inclusive environment for all participants, so let's keep our interactions respectful and supportive. Today, we are joined by Deepak, who is a cloud solution architect at Microsoft, and Mel, who is a senior solution specialist and global black belt at Microsoft. They'll be taking you through the Azure Front Door. So throughout this session, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to address as many as possible. We'll also be sharing additional resources and links in the chat as well. And for those who want to revisit today's session, you can catch the recording later on our Reactor YouTube channel. So without further ado, please give a warm virtual round of applause to our fantastic speakers. Take it away, Deepak.
Cool.
Hi, Deepak.
Thanks, Nadia. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Deepak Maheshwari. I'm a cloud solution architect based out of Perth, Australia, and I will be talking about Azure Front Door. So the agenda looks like we're going to talk about Front Door, some of the scenarios which we can unlock with Azure Front Door and its security capabilities, and some of the latest updates. Now, before we go deep in Front Door, let's just get the set, set the stage set. Like, what is Front Door? Front Door is the Microsoft modern cloud content delivery network. So Front Door provides fast, reliable, and secure access from your location to the backend application. So these applications could be running in on-prem or it could be running in Azure Cloud. Front Door provides a quick access to the backend application. And Front Door provides this content, access with high availability, lower latency, and greater scale. Now, Front Door uses Microsoft Global Edge Network. So we have got hundreds of edge networks across the globe, and Front Door uses those global edge network to provide the content access to the end user. Now, how does Front Door really work? So let's understand the architecture of Front Door. So as we talked about, Front Door uses the Microsoft Global Edge Network. It means we've got hundreds of edge network. And the way Front Door work, it uses the BGP protocol called Anycast. So BGP has got a specific, protocol capability that's called as Anycast. And it uses Anycast and split TCP. So the way it works is a user is going to connect to the website, so maybe contoso.com, and user session will be first terminated to the edge location. In this example, let's say I'm coming from Perth, and Perth has got one of the edge location for Front Door. I'll be connecting to the Perth edge location, and from there, it's a split TCP session. I will be connecting on a Microsoft backbone, and I will be connecting to, take an example, Australia East, where my backend is. So my website is running in Australia East, and I will be connecting through the Perth, and I will be connecting to my website. Now, what happens in the case if if my backend is unavailable? So maybe Australia East has got an outage, and I'm looking for a geo redundancy, and I have also got my website running in, let's say, Southeast Asia, which is Singapore. Now, since I'm connected to the edge and it's using the Anycast and split TCP session, my session will be moved to the next backend. Now, in this case, I've got only two backend. The next backend is Singapore. So I will be now connected to the backend in Singapore. So based on my routing, if I have chosen my preferred region is Australia East, I will always connect to Australia East. And if my secondary region is, let's say, Singapore, I will be able to connect to Singapore if Australia East or Sydney data center happens to be down. Now, we talked about there are 100 of edge locations. What happens if one of the edge happens to be down? That could happen. Now, in that case, my request will be transmitted. So BGP will do the auto failover, and it will use the closest available edge locations, which is also called as point of presence. Now, in this case, take an example, it's going to be Singapore. or anything which is closer to that user, and it will do the fast failover, and I will be able to connect to the backend. So it kind of provides you faster connectivity, secure connectivity, and optimized routing to provide content to the end user. Now, some of the use cases which Front Door unlocks. So Front Door provides secure global internet services. So it adds all the security capabilities like DDoS protection, web application, firewall, bot protection. All those capabilities are applied to the edge, which means your content is in the backend. And if there's a malicious traffic which is coming in, it will be stopped at the edge itself. It also provides dynamic content delivery. So it optimizes the application performance at scale with or without caching the content at the edge. So Front Door has a capability. You can decide if you want to cache the content at edge or you don't want to, cache the content at the edge. It provides modern microservices. So it uses the capability of load balancing, high availability to provide micro services. So you can break it down your application into multiple chunks and deploy across multiple app services, VMs, or different variety of backends. And you can actually serve your website from different backend as well. It also helps optimize the performance of static object and files. And it also provides the low latency if you've got, maybe images or, videos which are trying to access, which are, which are available at your website. Now, Front Door has got two SKUs. So we have got a classic SKU, which is kind of, outdated. We don't recommend you to use the classic SKU. It is still there. Some customers are using it. But as of now, we have got two major SKUs. One is the standard SKU and one is the premium SKU. The premium SKU is more optimized to the security. And we've got a section we're going to talk about some of the security capabilities of Front Door, which Nirmal is going to talk about. That's where the premium SKU comes in. So if your requirement is, to apply more security capabilities, then the premium SKU is the way to go for. Now, when it comes to boosting your application reliability and optimizing routing to origin, so this is just an example, right? So users are connecting to Azure Front Door. So Front Door is more closer to the user. And in the backend, they could have variety of the backend. So you could just break it down the backends in terms of, let's say, your video or images. They are stored at the Microsoft storage, which can help you reduce the cost. So some of the static content could be in blob, and some of the dynamic content is coming through the web app and the backend SQL. It also supports path-based load balancing. So depending upon your path, so if you want to, let's say, open up a website as contoso.com/images, the images comes from a different app services and the backend, and maybe the front end of the application comes from a different app services. So it could support variety of backend. So not necessarily it has to be the app services. It could even have the website running in your on premises as well. As long as the backend is accessible on a public IP, it can be used as a backend for Front Door. Now, I'm going to go through the demo. I'm going to talk about the Front Door configuration, but just for your understanding, there are multiple components when we configure the Front Door. So when we create a Front Door, so we create a Front Door profile, and within the profile, we have got the endpoints. So endpoints are like collection of domains which serves a specific website. And then we configure the route within the endpoint. And the route basically helps you, apply the specific, let's say, restrictions or rules for the traffic. So maybe you want to have HTTP or HTTPS, or you want to route your traffic, which is coming from HTTP to HTTPS. Those kind of rules you can apply to the route. And then you have got origin groups, and origin groups are like collections of origins. So it's basically, you could have multiple origins. So maybe in my example, I talked about Australia East and Singapore data centers. So these two could be the origins behind my origin group. So they can have a load balancing. If one happens to be down, another one can be used, or I can have different, weight category, which can basically say that half of my traffic should come to Australia East and half of my traffic should go to, let's say, Singapore. So I can configure those kind of load balancing within the origins as well. And in case if I need to override any rule, so front door also gives you the capability of rule set. So if you have defined any rules and let's say you wanna, you wanna override a specific set of rules, that's where you can use the rule set. So you can define the rule sets with if and then kind of a conditions. So you can say if this condition matches, we're gonna take a certain action. So those kind of capabilities are also available as a rule set in Azure Front Door, Standard and Premium. Now with this, I will just quickly jump on a demo and I'll show you how do you quickly set up a front door, and I'll also configure my existing front door and its caching capability. Now, creation of front door is pretty straightforward. So in this example, I've got a couple of front doors already created. And let's say I want to create another front door. I will simply come and click create. It gives me a couple of options. Am I going to use the Azure Front Door as a quick create, or I want to use a custom create? So if you want to customize your front door, it's always a good idea to create a custom create. If you want to use another partner solutions along with front door, then you can explore other offerings as well. Now for this demonstrations, we're going to use the Microsoft offering. So we're going to use custom create and we'll continue to create a front door. Now, front door creation is quite straightforward, like any other Microsoft services. You will select your resource group. You will, give a name to the service. You will select the tier. Like, take an example. I'm selecting the premium tier because I want to add extra layer of security, and I will give the name to my front door. Now, if you look at this one, the front door doesn't have a region. So the reason is we do not deploy front door in a specific region. Like it's not deployed in Australia East. We talked about the implementation is basically replicated across all the edge location. That's where we are not choosing a preferred region because it gets replicated across multiple, edge locations. Then next thing is secret. So in case if you want to use or bring your own certificate, so maybe if you're using a domain name and you want to use the SSL certificate for it, you can upload it to the key vault and you can add those certificate informations here. So for this demo, I will simply skip and go to endpoint. So as I said, the endpoint is basically a collection of domain. So I can give a name, click on add, and we enable this endpoint. So endpoint is enabled. Now within the endpoint, we create the route, and within the route, as I said, we define how do we want to route our traffic back to the origin and origin groups. So maybe we'll give a name to this route, and it has the information of what's the endpoint, what's the domain name. So we are not using our own domain name. So that's why it's using the default domain, which front door has provided. So I'm using everything as default. I'm selecting HTTPS as the protocol. And I'm also redirecting any HTTP traffic or request to HTTPS as well. So if some users are trying to access the website using HTTP, they will be redirected to the HTTPS. Now, I also need to create the origin group. And in the case of origin group, I will select the origin. So I will use the name backend origin, and I can select the origin here. Now, as we talked about, that Azure Front Door supports multiple origins. So your backend could be a storage account. Your backend could be app services, it could be a static web app, API, application gateway. And as I said, you can even have your on-premises public IP address as well. So if there is a backend with a public IP address, that backend can also be used as a backend in front door. Now, I would take an example in this, say, example, I'm going to select the app services. I'll select my app services. I will enable the validation. It has got the uh, ports, which is going to use for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS. And it has got the load balancing mechanism, which I was talking about. So the priority 1 means this, origin will get the highest priority. And then the next load balancing, mechanism we use, the wait. The wait mechanism helps you, divide your load across multiple origins. So if you've got, like, let's say 2 origins, if I give wait 3 to one origin and wait 7 to another origin, that means I'm distributing, 3% of traffic goes to the first one and 7% traffic goes to the next one. Or I would say 30% traffic goes to the first one, or 70% traffic goes to the next one. So I can do that. But obviously, if you're using priority as 1, that means this would get the first priority, regardless of what wait, uh, mechanism we are using, it will always go to the first one. So in the case, if you want to distribute your traffic, you'll have to keep the priority as 1 for both of your backend origins, and then you need to change the priority. That would just, make your backends load balance across both. If you don't do it, then the first backend will get all the requests. And obviously, you can enable the private link. The app services which I'm using, it is using the standard SKU. That's why I'm not able to use the private link service. But if you're using the right app services, you will be able to use the private link service, which is again part of the premium tier. So that's pretty much it in this configuration. I also wanted to show that I can also add a policy. So when we are configuring the front door, we can also configure the WAF policy. So you can create a web application firewall. So any OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities can be scanned using the WAF policies. And we can select which domain we want to apply this policy to. And then we can just create a new WAF policy. So that's pretty much like if you're creating a new front door, you'll provide these informations and you'll click save, and then it'll get created. So the front door creations could take 5 to 20 minutes in the actual creation. So just for the interest of time, I'll skip this and show you the configuration of my existing front door. Now, this is my front door, which is already deployed. So if I copy this URL, and if I try to open it in the browser, I copied the wrong URL. Yep. So it shows my website is running. Now, if I go and look at the front door manager, so this is the tool you will use to configure your front door, or you're going to go and look at the route configurations, the origin group configurations. They're all available under this front door manager. So if I need to make any changes in my route, I will come and click on default route, because that was the name of the route, and I can make any changes. So if I don't want to redirect my traffic from HTTP to HTTPS, I can uncheck this option. So any configurations related to the routing, I can do it here. Now, if I look at the origin group, so I will go on origin group. Within the origin group, I will be able to see what the backend I'm using in this origin group as well. So if I look at my origin group, it has got only one origin, and that's the website. And if I look at that website, it tells me I'm using the website, which is the app services, and this is the host name of my website. So I'll be able to see this, and I will be able to add more origins. So in case if I want to load balance it, I can add another origin within the origin group, and then that would just allow me to load balance my traffic between two regions as well. I can also see this under the origin group, and if I come here and look at the origin group, this will show me how many origin groups I'm using. So the reason I have created another origin group, because I want to show you that how can I manipulate my front door configuration and how can I enable the cache. So as we talked about, we have a capability called rule set. And what rule set does, it basically allows to manipulate the routing configuration. So what I've done here in my rule set, and I'll show you this configuration. What I'm doing here is that if my, if somebody's trying to open my website and if they have got, um, a word called architecture, and I could add many if I need to add more values as well, I can add it. I'm not doing any string transformations, so I'm not saying to lowercase or uppercase. Then I can do a certain action. Now, what I'm doing here in this case, I'm actually using my storage account. So what I've done, I have created Azure blob storage. And within the blob storage, I have created a container called images. And within that images container, I have got an MP4 file. So what I'm doing here is that I'm actually manipulating my configurations and adding a backend storage account which has got the mp4 media file. So if somebody will try to open up a media file, basically that would open up from my storage account. So maybe in certain scenarios you want to, let's say, modify your existing routing. Instead of sending traffic to your app services, maybe for images or video, you could also use it as the storage account. Now, in this case, I am using Azure Blob Storage. And if I show you in the storage configurations, so I've got a blob storage. So this is my storage account. And within the storage account, I've got a container with the name images. And within the images container, I've got the MP4 file. So if I want to open this MP4 file, I can access it from the storage. But I'm using this MP4 storage file in my front door. So what I've done, if a user is trying to open up a URL and it has got the architecture as the value, what it's going to do, it's going to match the pattern. It's going to use the origin group, which is images. And if I go back and show you here, I have got I'll just change it to origin groups. And in this origin groups, I have got the origin group images. Now, if I go on this origin group, what I'm using is the blob storage. So that's my storage, which is Azure Blob as my origin. And this is my blob. And within this blob, I have got the container name called images. And within that one, I have got a file called sample architecture.mp4. So if I try to access that website, now what's going to happen? I have got a developer tool enabled. And the reason why I have enabled the developer tools is because I want to show the content is actually coming from a cache. So I have configured my caching configuration. And with that caching configuration, what I'm saying, this content needs to be cached. And the way I look at this, now if I try to access this video, so this is a video which opens up. And if I, let's say, press F12, it's going to open up the developer tool. And if I select my, settings as network, and within that media, I see the sample architecture.mp4. And if I hit it next, now what it is showing me is it's coming from a Xcache as TCP hit. So this basically tells me it's coming from a cache instead of coming directly from the source. So that's what it is doing. It's not coming directly from the origin. It's coming from the cache right now. And so these are the code. You can see it, and I'll show you in a second in my deck as well. So if I go next, now if you go to this URL, Microsoft has got the header information. So if the TCP hit is the X cache value, that means it is actually coming from the CDN edge cache. So that kind of confirms that the traffic is coming from a cache. Now, initially when I configured this, I didn't have the cache configured. So it was showing config as no cache. And if the cache is not enabled, it means the traffic is going to be, sourced from the origin, and that traffic is going to take its own time. It could take a few milliseconds. And obviously, once the cache is enabled, and if the traffic is, or if the video is saved in a cache, it will be accessible quickly from a cache, and it will take less time to be accessible. So that's the configuration, I have done here. So, I have configured this cache behavior. It's always override. So I have a caching behavior I can enable. So not only I used my rule set to manipulate the configuration, I also enabled the caching, because with this caching, now my content is getting cached to my edge location, and that's why it is coming faster, and I can verify that content is getting sourced from a cache with the source code as well. Now, if I want to enable more, if I want to enable the performance of my content, I can also enable the compression as well. So these are the settings you will do as part of your front door configurations if you want to override any existing configuration. And if you want to change any header values, you would be using it into the rule set. So with this, I'm actually done my part, and I'll hand it over to Nirmal to talk about the security capabilities of front door and latest enhancements.
Perfect. Thank you, Deepak, and also thanks for walking us through different options that we have when we configure front door, specifically around the value front door is going to bring for users to be able to cache content locally and to be able to accelerate the connections to the backend. So we've already looked at what does it look like from a connectivity point of view, how front door will leverage the Anycast IP, get connected to the closest Microsoft Edge network. And then from the Edge network, the traffic gets sent to the backend environment. So when we look at security for applications, one of the unique benefits that we get utilizing Azure Front Door is that we can apply a layer of security at the edge before the traffic will reach the backend origin or the VNet where you are hosting the workload. So we will see how we can leverage the security functionality of Azure Front Door. And then what we will also do is I will demonstrate in my environment what does it look like for us to visualize some of this information utilizing Azure Workbooks, Log Analytics. And then I will wrap up the session by talking about what are the recent enhancements with Azure Front Door. So with that, I want to get started talking about what are the security functionality we bring with Azure Front Door. So Azure Front Door, when you configure your front door profiles with the premium SKU, this automatically includes the ability to leverage the web application firewall component. So web application firewall provides two core functions. The first function is that we offer the OWASP core rule set as a managed rule set to customers. Also, we will be offering bot protection part of the managed rule set. So when you go in and configure, you would see two different sections. One is for the core rule set that we offer. And then you will also see a section that is specifically designed for the bot protection functionality. Outside of this, we also allow the capability to configure custom rules. Now, custom rules can be configured to provide rate limiting capabilities. So you might want to provide certain number of requests for certain locations. So rate limiting can be then combined with a geo filter. So I could see if there are more users based out of Australia, I could fine tune and have a higher threshold for my rate limiting rules. And then if I have fewer users in a different geography or a country, I could then have the flexibility to tailor my geo filters and also my rate limits to then mitigate any DDoS, layer 7 DDoS type attacks against my environment. The other capability within Azure Front Door is we also leverage the DDoS layer 3, layer 4 capabilities that are offered by Microsoft from an infrastructure point of view, because Front Door by default only accepts HTTP traffic to be absorbed to the environment and then forward to the backend. So that by nature will prevent any UDP TCP flood attacks that could trigger or target your endpoints. So that is the infrastructure protection that is built in. And then, as I mentioned, on top of it, we do have the WAF protection that would then offer the managed rule set and also bot protection to offer layer 7 DDoS capabilities, all securing at the edge before the traffic reaches the VNet where you're hosting the workload. So this is a quick snapshot of how the managed rules are available, part of the WAF resource. I'll show this in a demonstration as well as to how you can assign these security policies. And also we will look at some of the new capabilities we've added specifically relating to logging and how some of these logs can be visualized through a workbook. Now, one of the other unique advantages that you get by utilizing Azure Front Door is the ability to leverage private endpoints. So this is what we offer as private origin, which is a feature part of the Azure Front Door premium SKU. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to pick a backend. So today we have a set of resources that are supported. So things like web apps, storage, any virtual machines that are deployed with a load balancer. These are some of the resource types that are supported. And you can configure Azure Front Door to talk to these backends by leveraging the private link service or private endpoint capability. Now, why is this unique and what's the benefit of this service? Typically, when you configure Azure Front Door or any CDN, what happens is the traffic goes to the CDN service, and then it needs to still reach the backend where you're hosting the workload. This is typically accessed through public network. So traffic hits the front door, and then front door will send traffic to your backend, and backend would typically have a public IP. And what we usually approach this is by applying NSG rules to specifically say only allow traffic to come through front door resources. And then on top of it, in the application, we can specifically allow only traffic to come through your own unique front door ID. So this will prevent someone else creating a front door resource and then trying to reach the backend. Now that is how we do this for resources that are having a public IP. These are the two layers of protection that we do, because the public endpoint is living in a public network, so someone else can try to reach that particular endpoint. Now, to mitigate that particular attack vector without needing to publish the application through a public IP, what we can then do is use the private link service utilizing front door. And then we can say, I don't want to expose any endpoints to the public internet. Instead, what I will do is I will be using my private IP, and then I will bind it with Azure Front Door. So that allows me to have a private path from the front door edge all the way to my network without me needing to have any exposure to the public endpoint. So that is a capability we are offering through Front Door Premium to have this protection for your origin, your backend services, without the need to have any exposure to public internet. So this is how it's configured. We select the origin, and then if it is one of the supported origin types, that gives us the ability to be able to configure the backend and enable private origin, so that then triggers the private link integration with the resource that you have created. So we will see a quick demonstration on this particular scenario, and then I will show how some of these capabilities could be configured. Also, I will mention some of the new developments that we have relating to adding new private origin resource type support. Now, on top of it, Deepak touched on the ability to apply caching. We also have the ability to implement a compression for different resource types. You can select the resource type that you need. We will leverage and support types like gzip, broadly. These are some of the two widely used compression capabilities. So Azure Front Door will allow the content to be compressed, again, allowing further acceleration of your content when users are consuming your services that are being published through Azure Front Door. We also want to run through some of the creation capabilities. So this is, again, some of the capabilities that Deepak touched on. So we have native APIs within Azure Front Door for us to be able to go in and create front door profiles, which will allow developers and application owners to accelerate their deployment, to have the configuration and the infrastructure code within the same repositories that they maintain, and be able to deploy all of the infrastructure assets that's needed, and at the same time build and deploy the workload or the web application that they're developing, and then publish through Azure Front Door without the need to switch different tools, switch to different consoles, and then you need to go in and create the CDN and the publishing configuration. So this is essentially baked into your existing deployment process, your existing deployment pipelines, and allows you to simplify the deployment by going in and automating the deployment end-to-end from both the infrastructure and to the applications. And then on top of it, we have the ability to provide number of customizations. If you want to do request manipulations, if you want to do response manipulations, you can do all of that through a powerful rules engine. So we had a very quick look at an example that Deepak demonstrated. We can specifically look at a URL and then decide whether we want to cache that content, decide whether we want to compress that content. On top of it, we could also apply different header insertions. So when the response goes back to the user, we can do number of manipulations that we need, part of the rules engine, which is also built into Front Door. Another great capability that's available is the advanced analytics functionality, which is also available in Front Door. Why this is beneficial is from the get-go, when the Front Door profile is configured, you can go in and view the analytics dashboard to get a view of how much traffic you have in the application, what are the different security insights. If you have configured the WAF profile, you can see some of that data. This particular analytics view doesn't have any dependency for log analytics. So even if you're not using log analytics or sending your log information to a log analytics workspace, you can still go ahead and visualize this information within Front Door. So that's great, again, for customers who don't have the workspaces configured, but they want to quickly have a look at what is the performance of the environment that they've configured, and then get deeper insights in terms of user distribution, in terms of latency, in terms of cache hit ratio. All of that data is available within the Front Door resource. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a quick demo and quickly show how some of the analytics components are available within Front Door. And I will also look at showing how you can go into additional configuration relating to collecting logs, and then how you can visualize some of that utilizing Azure Front Door. So with that, let me switch to my demo environment, and then I'll walk you through how we can configure some of this within Azure Front Door. All right, so this is one of the demo environments that I've set it up. So you can see that this is a Azure Front Door resource. So if I go to my Azure Front Door, you can see I have two different profiles that I've created. So for this particular demonstration, I'm going to use the demo user profile that I've created. So when you look at this particular Front Door resource, you can see that I have an endpoint that's created. I have WAF configuration, which is my web application firewalling and the security functionality. I have a set of routing rules, and I also have a origin group. Now, how do I know the usage of this application? How do I know how many users access my website? So that is where in the left-hand column, I can scroll all the way down, and you see this analytics section. So when you go to the analytics section, now this is going to start loading up the telemetry that we have within the Azure Front Door resource. So again, as I mentioned, it's not dependent on having the diagnostics configured to either storage or log analytics, but this is essentially looking at the usage metrics of the resource itself, and then giving that in a form of a dashboard for users and consumers to view the usage of the application. So here we are looking at 7 days of data. Again, you can download this information to a CSV as well. Also, I have different tabs that's available. So, example, I can go to usage. This would also give me a visual representation of some of the data, how much traffic I've generated over last 7 days. It's also going to give me really important information to understand how much traffic am I getting at the edge, and then how much traffic is going to get sent to my backend. Because if my application can be further optimized and improve, example, the cache hit ratio, that could mean I could run my website for cheaper, because I don't need all of the requests to be served by my backend. Instead, I can deliver some of the content out from the edge directly to my users. So this gives me a good view of how my environment is behaving. I can see if there are any errors that are generated. What is the failed request type? Is all my requests are successful? So you can get all of the standard metrics that you need from a CDN all out of the box using this reports functionality. I can also look at traffic based on the distribution. So if it's a global application that I've deployed, I can also get a view of where these users are coming from. So gives me a good sense of what users are connecting from, gives me an information from where they're coming from. And if I go to the use agents, it will also show me what browsers they use, what devices they use, how many requests are reaching from which different endpoints. So really gives good insights for the developers to understand how they should look at optimizing their applications. We also get the security view as well. Again, this is out of the box, part of the Front Door resource. So here again, I can get a view of do I have any specific events by the rule type, whether it's a managed rule or whether it's a bot rule, and it also gives me a breakdown of any specific type of attacks that it's observing. Top client IPs where it's observing different attacks. So again, get a view of how your website is behaving from a performance point of view for the application. Plus, you also get this security view as well. Now, on top of it, what we could also do is very similar to most other Azure resources. You could go to your diagnostics, and then you can go in and configure your diagnostics to say, I need some of these logs, so including the front door access log, which is all the processing of the request, plus the web application firewall log, all to be sent to a log analytics workspace. Now, the benefit of doing that is if I go to my log analytics workspace, I can then query these resources. So this is all within the Azure Diagnostics table, and within the Azure Diagnostics table gives me the ability to view and query all the activity that's happening in my front door environment. This also gives me the ability to go in and configure specific alerts. So if I need to be triggered because of a specific layer 7 DDoS attack, or my rate limits are, if there are rate limits that are exceeding, I could now go in and get alerts, get notified, so I can be on top of what's happening in my environment. Now, this is all well and good, but not every user is an expert in KQL or running these Kusto queries. We do have published workbooks that will help users to be able to visualize some of this information specifically for a security type of data. So I'm going to quickly open up a dashboard that's available that you could use. So this is one of those dashboards. So let me find the dashboard and quickly show how you can use that. So this is a specific dashboard for WAF information. But what this workbook will allow you to do is, once you set the subscription and once you set your log analytics workspace, it's going to take all of the data from the log analytics workspace, and then you can select the specific WAF component. But then it allows you to go and visualize this data, so you can see what are the top 50 events, and really gives you a real-time view of what's happening from Azure Front Door to your application, and you can really view what are the different type of attacks and get a good sense of what's happening from a security point of view, which attacks are being logged, which attacks are being dropped, what are the client IPs, what are the request URIs. So you get all of that data available in a very consumable way by utilizing some of these built-in workbooks that you can import into your environment. We have a GitHub repo that has some of the workbooks, and then you can allow you to easily, quickly find the relevant data that you need relating to the security posture of your environment. Now, looking at the logs, specifically, we've added new capability recently. So we have the ability now, when we go to the web application firewall configuration, you now have this sensitive data protection capability. So what this is going to do is it allows you to do scrubbing for your log events. So example, if you have specific regulatory responsibility where you're not going to store certain information, so you want some of the information to be masked or scrubbed from your logs, you can turn on the sensitive data and you can enable log scrubbing. And here you have a couple of options. You can do request IP, you can do request URI, you can do based on query strings, header names, number of different options. So in my example, I've enabled this for the request IP. So what you would see in my log analytics workspace, if I go in here and if I say, show me some of my log events, what you would notice is that the client IP is going to get removed. So here, if we zoom in, you can see here the client IP and the socket IP address, these are all masked because that's the new capability we've added where we can specifically go in and say we want to remove some of this data. We don't want to store this data in our log analytics repository. So it gives the flexibility for customers if there are certain sensitive information that they don't want to store, they can leverage the sensitive data scrubbing, which is a new preview feature we've added to the web application firewall capability. And that allows you to do the data scrubbing if that is needed for your use case. So with this, I'm going to switch back to my slide because I do want to run through one more scenario. So this is the scenario with Azure Front Door, how you can leverage application gateway. So let me switch back to my browser. So here I want to run through a standard example. So as Deepak mentioned at the start, we leverage Anycast, and then we have split TCP. So the TCP session initially gets terminated at the edge, and then the front door is the one that is making the TCP connection back to your origin. So typically how this works is a user gets connected to the closest edge. So the Anycast IP is distributed. User will request for this IP, gets connected to the closest edge. And then from the closest edge, you are essentially riding the Microsoft backbone, but you are talking to public IP. That's the standard deployment topology. But one of the new scenarios that are currently getting rolled out, it's going to be available, is the ability to do private link or private link service capability with application gateway. So if I scroll down, how this is going to work is first we have to deploy application gateway and then configure application gateway to allow private endpoint creation. And then what we'll do is the front door, when we create the origin, we will say we want to leverage private origin. So we will select that option that then generates a private link service request to application gateway. You have to go in and approve this. So it doesn't get approved automatically. If you ask the owner for the app gateway resource, you still have to go approve the request. And once that's done, then the traffic from the edge will leverage the private link integration. So you don't need to allow any public access from the app gateway public endpoint. And then you send all of that traffic from app gateway to your backend. So this gives you private access to environments of front door as a global load balancer and the security at the edge. And then you apply all of the security capabilities at the edge. And then from there, it's essentially end-to-end private connectivity to the app gateway and also to the backend VMs that we are hosting in the environment. So let me switch to that environment, and I want to run through some of the config. So first thing is the preparation of the application gateway resource. That's the first thing to get started. So here you can see I have a standard app gateway that's deployed v2, and this app gateway has this 1.244 private IP that's deployed to a VNet. So if I go to the environment, first thing is configure this with private link. So you can see there's a configured private link subnet, and this is essentially ready to be enabled with private endpoints. So if I need to create a private endpoint to get connected to my app gateway, I can do that once the private link configuration is done. And then what you do is you do your backend config. So you can see here, if I go to my front-end configuration, there are no active listeners configured to the public IP because the public IP automatically gets created when you create an app gateway v2 instance, but there's no configuration here, so there's no listener. And then from the MSGs, I've also blocked any access to this environment, except for the gateway manager and a few other components that's required for front door to work. And then there's a listener in here, which will then listen for traffic and then essentially send traffic to my backend pool, which is distributing traffic to two different VMs. So the way how this works is I make a origin inside front door, and then I will request for an approval. So this goes through an approval process. So you can see here I've already approved, which allows my front door resource to then talk to app gateway, and then app gateway will pass it on to the environment. So as of now, the portal experience is still getting rolled out, but you can configure this through ARM Bicep, PowerShell CLI. Any of the API integrations would work. So once you go to your front door resource, what you do is very similar to your standard config. You will create an origin group, and in the origin group, you will add the app gateway private IP. So you can see here, this is the IP we had just had a look at in the app gateway resource. And then to this resource, we would go and configure the private origin capability. So I've already done this for interest of time, but to validate, if you go in and say, show me the origin config, let me grab that quickly. That will then allow me to have a look at how this is configured, and then I can go in and do a front door origin list. So here I can run this config, which will show me what are the origins configured for this particular resource. And then it will show me the different origins that's configured. If I also do JSON output, we can see the specific resource that it's talking to. So you can see here the origin that I configured, the OG private origin name. This one is specifically having private link, and it's talking to my app gateway. So with that in mind, if I go to the front door resource and if I open it up, I've created a rule to forward port 80. So what it would do is, let me get the URL. It will then direct traffic to my front door edge, and then the front door edge will send traffic to the app gateway again through the private endpoint, and then traffic gets sent to my backend environment. So that's a quick demonstration of the private link integration. So this allows us to secure our backend without the need to expose any public IPs in the environment. So with that, I want to quickly run through some of the feature enhancements and feature capabilities. We've rolled out TCP TLS 1.3 support. So this is essentially allowing a front door to respond to a TLS 1.3 session. So that is completely rolled out. We've also looked at the log scrubbing capability for sensitive fields. So this is still in preview, but that's also available if you have any specific fields that you want to mask from your logging. You have that capability available through Azure Front Door. We've also touched on the private endpoint integration using a backend like the app gateway that is so far available through CLI APIs for you to go in and do that integration. Portal availability would also soon be available. And then last, the biggest update at Build and also at the RSA conference is the Security Copilot integration with the web application firewall capability. So you can now utilize natural language to interact with the front door web application firewall capabilities. You could ask for, show me what are the latest events in my front door environment. You can specifically query all of the data. It will summarize and give you a view of able to consume some of the events that's taking place in the environment, leveraging Security Copilot. So with that, I want to wrap up the session by summarizing the capabilities and the value that we offer through front door. So starting with performance and resiliency. So Deepak touched on this, the ability to leverage the wider Microsoft global network, over 204 different edge locations. So allow to terminate your TCP sessions, allow to consume content, caching, compression, and then at the same time apply a layer of security all at the edge. So have the capability to utilize the performance and the scalability of a global CDN, and then be able to connect all of these capabilities to your backend, either using private endpoints for supported resources. For other resources, we also have integrated capabilities where you can select the origin and then have that integration. Also, from a cost point of view, the traffic data out from the Azure resources to front door is 0. So there's no cost for data coming from a Azure resource to the front door edge. So these are the benefits in a summary that you get by leveraging the first party Microsoft CDN service, which is the Azure Front Door, either leveraging the standard or enhanced security with the premium SKU. This is some of the benefits you get. And I've also touched on the feature enhancements, some of the things that have been updated. So hopefully this was useful. With that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions in the chat, and yeah, open up for questions as well. Deepak, I don't know whether you've seen any questions in the chat.
We've got quite a few questions, and Deepak's been doing such a great job answering them all, actually.
Awesome. Anything you want to highlight, Deepak, or we can happily wrap up the session?
I think one quick question. Can you hear
Any
me?
specific?
Yep,
yeah,
we
we
can
can.
hear you.
Any specific questions you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think Ajmal wants to know, like, if he wants to expose the storage account to receive 100 to 300 GB data as a kind of a upload from a user perspective. I'm still contemplating, because I don't see Front Door as a good solution for it. And he also wants to enable the malware, scanning, which basically is done by the Defender suite of product. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. Like, Front Door may not be a best solution ideally for that. Maybe, I think he's looking for more like a FTP solution. Where files can be uploaded, but at the same time, I think what he also wants to ensure is there is a malware scan. So Ajmal, I think you might want to expose the storage directly to end users, as well as you could have a restriction in terms of how that storage is accessible, and you will also use Defender for storage. But Front Door may not be a best solution for these kind of scenarios.
I think I'm just reading through the chat. I think you've given the response around it, so that's good. I don't see any more questions, so I think, Nadia, we can wrap up the session. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and Ajmal, thanks for the question as well. That's great.
Thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you so much, Nirmal. And I've also just popped in a survey link as well. We always strive for great feedback, and I'd love to pass anything on to Deepak and Nirmal as well. Thank you all for joining, and thank you both as well. And we'll see you all next time. Bye for now.
Awesome. Thank you.